So June 17th, 2015. It's a day we'll never forget. It's a day I got a text message from my chief of staff. It's a day that I got on the phone with my chief of SLED. He said there had been a shooting at a church and that it didn't look good. And he said, and you need to know, this is Senator Pinckney's church. And I said, do we have SLED headed over there? He said, I've got all my guys headed over there. And I said, I'm on standby. The next thing I did was call Senator Pinckney. And I called Senator Pinckney and I got his voicemail. And I said, Senator Pinckney, I heard about what's happened. I am on standby. We have SLED giving you backup. I will be there first thing in the morning. Whatever you or your families need, please let me know. I didn't know he wouldn't get that message because that was a session day. I thought he was at session. But he always had his priorities right. He needed to get to that Bible study, and that's what he did. The next day, the details started coming in of what exactly happened. We spoke with the investigators. We saw how brutal it was. And I hurt for the people of South Carolina because I knew that when they found out the details that I knew, that the heart and soul of our state would be broken. And I didn't know how we were going to recover from that. But I knew we were a people of faith. I knew we were a people of prayer. I knew we were a people of strength. And I knew that we would get through this. What I can tell you is one of my first conversations was with Bishop Norris. And he, while he was not in good health, did not weaken at all in his leadership and his strength. And I say that on behalf of all of the AME churches. Because the second that we did the press conference to tell everyone how bad this was going to be, Bishop Norris had vigils scheduled all around our state, and they were full. People were shocked and they were hurt. They didn't understand. Not in South Carolina, not in our state, not in the state that's named the friendliest state in the country, the most patriotic state in the country, not in South Carolina. What went on to happen from there was a grieving process. It was a grieving process for every man and woman, black or white, regardless of their religion, across this state, that didn't have protests, they had vigils. They didn't have riots, they had hugs. And then it was important for me to know the people who went in that room. Because there were 12 amazing souls that walked into that Bible study that day. And what I want you to know is those 12 people, there hasn't been a day since June 17th, 2015, that I don't think about all 12. And I ask that this not be an anniversary ceremony. I ask that you think of all 12 every day. Because what I have learned from the 12 is something that is beyond explanation. But I want to start by going through each one. And I ask that you give me that opportunity because it's important. I have all the programs from all the funerals. They stay in a drawer right by my bed as a reminder of the goodness of people, of the faith I strive to have, of the love of God that they had, of what happened in that room. and what was going on in their minds at the time that it happened. First one I want to show you is the smiling, beautiful, contagious face of Reverend Daniel Lee Simmons Sr. He was a, please, thank you. This was a man that had a love for Mother Emanuel. He was always there. But his whole life was one of public service. He worked for the Department of Corrections and helped rehabilitate people who wanted to change their life. He was a Vietnam veteran who had given his service to our country. But he went a step further. He worked for the veterans that were disabled to help them find their strength and help them find what they needed to become a better person. That was Daniel Lee Simmons. Thank you. Every one of these programs I kept, because after every funeral, I would take them home to my children, and I would introduce them to the person I met that day. And I wanted them to learn from each and every one of them. The next one was Mrs. Ethel Lance. Mrs. Lance had a smile on her face, but a hurt in her heart. She had lost her daughter 2 years before to breast cancer. And to get herself going through every day, she would sing a song. Whether she could sing or not was still in question. But she would sing, "One day at a time, sweet Jesus. That's all I'm asking of you. Give me the strength to do every day what I have to do." I have found myself singing that song, and I don't know that I sing any better than she does. But I thank her for that. Reverend DePayne Middleton Doctor. This was a woman who gave so much to her church because she felt called. But she had 4 beautiful daughters, and she raised 4 very strong daughters to know what it meant to be strong in their faith, to be strong as people, and to know the kindness. And I would ask you, if you want to ever do anything that will bring comfort to your heart, get a CD of hers, because she had the voice of an angel. That was Reverend DePayne Middleton Doctor. Sharonda Singleton. This was a woman that had 3 beautiful children that she adored. But she took on every child as her own. She was surrounded by students every day. But this woman found the best in every student. This woman found confidence in every student. This woman showed every student they deserved better, and she brought it out in them. And so she changed lives every single day, which is something we should all remember. That's what I remember about Sharonda Singleton. Myra Thompson has always been a little bit painful for me. Because on the day of June 17th, she was certified to preach. And so that first moment was in that Bible study. And it was Mark chapter 4. And I just heard recently that Reverend Thompson, her husband, gave that Bible study. I spent many days talking with my pastor about Mark chapter 4 because I wanted to know what was in their heart. I wanted to know what they heard. And what they reminded us is God is always with us. God will never leave us, but we have to know God. That was Myra Singleton Thompson. Senator Pinckney. This was a man that was known to be a gentle giant. He walked in, he was intimidating by his height, but when he spoke, he was intimidating by his voice. He had a very deep voice. He had a very strong voice. But he was probably one of the most respectful men I ever had the opportunity to know. He never talked about what he was against. He always talked about what he was for. I didn't know him very well, but in every single interaction I had with him, he was a man of respect. He treated everyone with kindness and respect. And I have learned so much more from him, about him, from his father, because he had a great love for his family. And he would take time to go pick up his father and take him to lunch and order for him, because that's what he felt like he needed to do. He never forgot his family. He never forgot his constituents. And he never forgot Mother Emanuel. That was Senator Pinckney. I have two sweet faces to show you here. This is who I call Aunt Susie, and Tawanza Sanders. Aunt Susie never had a negative word to say about anybody. She was a sweet, kind person. Even if something negative came in front of her, she had something kind to say. And she lived each and every day that way. And this is Tawanza Sanders, our youngest victim, with a contagious face and a smile that brought everyone else to smile with him. He had his entire life in front of him. He had just finished school and had all these grand ideas, but wanted to own his own barbershop. When his mother got breast cancer, he tattooed her name on his chest. And his mother said, "You were crazy. No one's ever going to marry you with my name on your chest." But that's the love he had for his mom. If you've ever watched The Lion King, he was little Simba to his dad. His dad loved him, taught him, nurtured him. And you know that Felicia and Mr. Sanders did an amazing job, because on that night, in that Bible study, Tawanza stood in front of his 87-year-old Aunt Susie, looked the murderer in the eye, and said, "You don't have to do this. We mean no harm to you." That was Tawanza Sanders and Aunt Susie. And then there's Cynthia Hurd. Cynthia Hurd has changed my life by one simple thing. Her life motto was to be kinder than necessary. We all can learn from Cynthia. We all can be kinder than necessary. That was Cynthia Hurd. That's how she lived her life. There were 3 other people in that Bible study. And it will forever be the Emanuel 12 to me. It's not the Emanuel 9. You've heard me say it before. These 12 people went into a Bible study on a Wednesday when they didn't have to. But they went in there with faith, with the love of God, in a church they loved. And as they sat down to do their Bible study, someone came in that didn't look like them, didn't act like them, and didn't sound like them. I've always been amazed by this, because they didn't call security. They didn't throw him out. They did exactly what every one of us should do when someone different comes up to us. They pulled up a chair and they prayed with him for an hour. What you need to know about these 12 people is, as they preached the Word of God, as they talked about Mark chapter 4, during that hour, the murderer, for a few moments, changed. He suddenly said that he thought about not doing it. This man who had spent months getting ready to do a hate crime, those 12 people in that room changed him for a few moments because he was taken by their love and their kindness and their Word of God. Think about that. Those 12 people changed that murder. If only for a moment, it was that powerful. Now, we know what happened after that, but to me, June 17th was a day where we wrapped our arms around each other, neighbors to neighbors, strangers and strangers, and for a moment in time, everybody in the people of South Carolina hurt together over the same thing. The rest of the country joined us in that pain. And then we decided we needed to lift up. And the strength that we used to lift up was from the faith that was shown. It is very important to me on a personal basis that we never forget the 3 survivors. Because to me, I will forever know that there are angels that live on earth. Miss Shepherd and Miss Sanders and her granddaughter have shown me what true courage is. They have given me inspiration in their faith. I can't imagine the challenges that they continue to go through. But they do it with grace and compassion, and they do it one day at a time, asking God to push them through it. I don't know why God said, it's not your time yet. But if you meet these women, you'll understand why. There's more they're going to do for us. So you take this and you look back at June 17th. On June 13th, I had called for a day of prayer. It was very controversial. People didn't think that I should call for a day of prayer because there should be a separation of church and state. I called it because my parents always taught me there's never too much God in your life. That was on June 13th. The tragedy happened on June 17th. As we all pushed through the funerals, as we all pushed through the heartache, everyone wondered if this was just short-lived. It wasn't. South Carolina was changed forever. It was changed forever in the way we look at each other. It was changed forever in the way we talk to each other. It was changed forever in the way we feel pain together. And it was changed forever in that we decided to listen more and talk less. And if you ever doubt that that faith or strength or love of God changed, think about what happened in October with the 1,000-year flood. Because all of that faith from the Emanuel 12 and the grace of their families was still with us. And you saw strangers helping strangers. You saw people saving people. You saw people taking food up and down streets to try and help. So what I ask of you is, I don't have anything political to say. What I want you to know is South Carolina has moved forward. Not forward in the way that we forget these people, because I won't ask that you never do. But that we've moved forward in a fact that there's a new respect for each other that I don't think we had before. There's a stronger faith in this state that I don't think that we had. There's a love of each other that we have grown and that we should continue to grow. There are people who are going to want to divide us, and that's all the more reason we remember these people who talked about love and acceptance. Those are the lessons. Those are the lessons. And I do have to say a special thank you to Elder Goff, because going through every one of these funerals will forever be one of the most challenging things I've ever done in my life. And to see him lead every one of these funerals was an amazing thing, because many times I would look at him and there were just tears coming down his eyes. But he gave everything he had to every family that he could. So my final thought that I will leave with you is, please don't forget the families. For them, the hurt's not over. For them, it feels like it does to me. I feel like this just happened yesterday. And so they need our strength, and they need our prayer, and they need our love. I ask that you don't forget the survivors. Many of these family members and survivors still feel lost and still feel broken, and every day is a struggle. Pray for them. Try and do what you can for them. Let them know they are still loved, because anniversaries don't mean anything to them. They're living this each and every day. It is our job as a people to prove to them that June 17th was not in vain, and that we will forever take the lives of these 9 and the survivors of those 3 and live to be better people and be kinder than necessary as we move forward in our lives. And so while many people will refer to 2015 and June 17th as a year of tragedy, I go through every day of my life thinking that June 17th in 2015 was a year of faith, because it was the day that we realized that we had to lean on our faith. We weren't in control, but if we just leaned on God, that we were going to be okay. I want to personally thank each and every one of you for your kindness, the heart that you've shown, the love and caring that you continue to show all people in South Carolina. And I challenge you always, don't forget these people. They taught us amazing things. We will forever be changed. The Mother Emanuel 12 that we will always talk about. I don't want it to be talked about on an anniversary. I will always talk about it, whether I'm in state or out of state. I will always talk about these people who changed my life, and I will forever be grateful. And I'm thankful to the AME Church, the leadership, Bishop Norris, Elder Goff, to all of the family members. A special thank you to Felicia, who I have gotten to know and consider a friend, and who will continue to be, her and Miss Shepherd, two of the strongest ladies that I know. And I ask you for your prayers, but just know this is a great state. Don't ever question it, because when we were tested, we proved it. And if we have to ever prove it again, we will. God bless.